Okay, so which newspapers are you doing? We have a couple. We always have big packs in the studio on Monday.
I do have a couple. I can start with the Ghanaian Times. I have the Ghanaian Times Daily Dispatch. I have BNFT. I think Daily Guide as well. So let me start with Ghanaian Times. There's a banner headline: allow 13 Writer students to write exams. President's direct Ghana Education Service. And then it comes with a picture of Professor Kwesi Opoku Amankwa, who is Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Then beneath that, you have EPA begins nationwide audit of ammonium nitrate storage facilities today. Story is on page 17. I hope that we can have, some clearer understanding of what that means, maybe an expert perspective. I don't know exactly what it means. And 2 trapped to death in Galamsey pit again. That story is on page 3 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. EC ends mop-up voter registration exercise on page 17. And so, that is the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. I'll quickly take you to the back page. I do have a bit of an insight as well, but let me see if I can just quickly go to inside pages before we get to, right. So the center spread of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, disturbances in SHS, you have that story there. And then what the EPA is doing. Unfortunately, I can't see too clearly from here, so I would have loved to read the first paragraph or so people can understand exactly what the story is. And Nanumba South District youth demand removal of DCE. Again, okay. And then you have the details of that story about the EC ending the mop-up voter registration exercise. So let me quickly tell you what they have on the back page. Government WEF launched initiative to address SDGs financing gap. Very important story, I must say, now that donor funds are very hard to come by. An aviation minister expresses worry over encroachment on Sunyang Airport lands. Airport land security lands are encroached upon all over the place. So I think that'll be it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's take a look at the Daily Guide newspaper. Daily Guide newspaper comes with a very big picture of President Akufo-Addo and their banner headline, that is Nana's economy strong despite COVID-19. Stories by Enes Kofi Edu and other stories on the front page. Rawlings called as criminals. That story is attributed to Ahoy, Professor Ahoy. See story on page 3. And 3 busted for 3.5 million energy ministry cash. I'm interested in that story. And they have a picture of somebody, they say he's on the run. Samuel Pencil is his name. He's on the run. But that story is on page 6. Maybe we can take a look at it if we have some time. Beneath the banner headline of the Daily Guide, NPP, NDC clash again. 1 dead again. Needlessly so. That story is on page 6. And today or never, COSUA or COSUA petitions government. See page 70, Page 16, I beg your pardon. And then 63 Ivorians arrested over voters' cards as the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. And the Daily Guide newspaper has some more stories. Let me quickly look for the center spread. Okay, so the center spread, Ms. Bell queries Nana for defending Nigel Gazy. Oh, okay. MPs back fiscal responsibility rules suspension. You know, that very interesting story in Parliament. And CMP saves 300 million under Kelmy GVG. Oh, wow. Okay. And the NPA procures over 3,000 gas cylinders for Jomoro. Parliament backs tax waivers for Kumasi Airport, and Beyonce supports Kenyan business. Some other story in the center spread of the Daily Guide newspaper. I think this is the back page. Today or never, Kosua petitions government. Bring Kotoko glory days. Bring back Kotoko glory days. Juventus Saksari Pelo takes over, and yes, Pep praises Jesus. Hallelujah, somebody. Okay, so Roland, that's a Ghanaian Times and the Daily Guide newspaper. Maybe you want to take a bit of yours and then I'll continue with the BNFT and the Dispatch so people don't get tired of hearing me alone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're a good journalist. You know how to produce good content. So, well, straight away, let's give you what's on the front page of the Daily Graphic. So it has on the front page, dismissed WASI candidate ministry. Ghana Education Service there to meet today. It's a directive from the president. My conclusion was that, well, the president has pardoned them. You know, sometimes we have to make it look good. So, but I think this intervention is the best intervention for these 14 students. They would have been distraught by now. What they did was pure indiscipline, but again, pardoning them, I believe, was the right way to go. So we have other stories also up there. Reject candidates who support violence. NCC tells voters. So good call. Yeah, you have any individual belonging to any of the political parties instigating violence who also tends to espouse violence. Make sure that you renounce those ideologies that they have. I'm not against free SHS. John Mahama clarified that while he made a visit up north. Guma Earl, managing director, 2 others busted for $3.5 million cloned check fraud. Now the story, when you read it's quite interesting. I'll tell you about it as well. But also on the back page of the paper, police to reward officers in deprived areas. They keep saying this. They do that same refrain, or say that for teachers and health workers. I don't know how much they're incentivized, but this is a good call. Implementation is always a problem for many of the times. Greater Accra Regional Hospital suspends 2 workers for administrative malpractice. We told you that on Prime on Sunday evening about how Anas Remiyao's latest documentary, the BBC Investigative Team Africa Eye team already telling us about how PPEs were allegedly being sold indiscriminately, apparently belonging to a private individual on the premises of the hospital, and many other advantages being taken off within the period of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, let's look at our next issue. We're talking the Custodian newspaper. Audu Mahama is the managing editor of the Custodian. Good morning to you, Audu. The Custodian has on the front page, choose Rollins or Perfidious Ahoy. JJ loyalist fires NDC, and 2 CPP officers petition against Nanaya Jantwa. We also do have Kufuado pleads for 14 sacked senior high school students. Parliament passes registration of Better Debt Bill 2020. The Electoral Commission, though, gets legal backing for 2020 polls. There's processes to make sure that everything is on track as far as getting the right regulations in place for the election to take place. On the back page is full of sports. Kumasi Asante Kotoko needs strong leadership to implement policies, according to Gerald Motri. One time also was with the Kotoko Express, but also did some communication for the great club Kumasi Asante Kotoko. AstroTurf will solve infrastructure deficit in Upper East Overload. And down there we have Countryman Sungu announces return to Inshira FM Sports in Kumasi. Also on the back page of the Custodian newspaper. Gifty, you can continue now.
Okay, docs. So I'm going to do the BNFT. BNFT banner headline, lessen tax burden, businesses will recover quickly from COVID-19. That story is on page 3. It doesn't really say who is saying that. But on top of that, there is formalize and take advantage of the new normal. And that's the Vodafone CEO, Madam Ogonai, saying to MSMEs. Okay, and then there is a story about schools asked to get more attention from 150 million cap top-up funds, according to the NBSSI. That story is also on page 3. And cargo throughput drops 44% in first quarter. Okay, so this is it for the front page of the BNFT. Let's quickly take a look inside. Employment Minister moves to foil public sector strike over low SNIT pensions. And Common Platform has saved Ghana 1.5 billion in undeclared taxes by telcos. Okay, very interesting story. I think also other pages. Page 3 has the details of the stories you found on the front page of the newspaper. And then it comes with a picture of all the people, Bunai, I think the NBSSI, and some other stakeholders as well in that. Okay, back page of BNFT. Stationery suppliers bemoan impact of COVID-19 as schools remain closed. Yeah, that's another sector that's taking a hit from the coronavirus pandemic. And GCB donates 100,000 CDs to Upper West Health Directorate. Then UCC Law School honors Goyle and Group CEO. Oh, those stories are what the BNFT is reporting. Let me take a look at the Dispatch newspaper. Banner headline, over 16 million voters registered. Yay! That's the Electoral Commission telling us. The story is on the back page. Amina Ahoy on the NDC and Rawlings in opposition 2001 to 2009. I think they're also serializing the Ahoy book. That story is on page 3. And what led to the friction between Rawlings and some ex-appointees? Story is on page 2. Comes with a picture of Mr. Rawlings and focus on Ghana's second republic. Down memory lane. Some of the analysis that the paper has been running over the a couple of weeks or months, I think, some months now. So that's the front page of the Daily Dispatch. Quickly, let's take a look at what's inside. Harunata eulogizes John Mahama in forthcoming book. A lot of books will be flowing as we, slowly get towards the elections, I'm sure. And regions on the border had the most challenged cases, according to Electoral Commission, really pretty much to be expected. And what led to the friction between Rawlings and some ex-appointees, that story is there on this particular page, which is the page 2. Yes, page 2. An eligibility of 30,462 voters challenged. So that's the number of people that had their eligibility challenged. 61,000 voters with poor fingerprints to go through facial verification. Okay, it comes with a picture of Deputy Electoral Commissioner Bosman Asari. And then the other one that gives us the number of people whose eligibility was challenged comes with a picture of Jean Mensah, the AC boss herself. Finally, the back page of the Daily Dispatch. The analysis, you find it there towards 2020 election, over 60 million Ghanaians registered, details of that story there. And then no new voters register in the foreseeable future, according to the EC. Well, that depends. The way we've made the system, it depends on a whole lot of things. Okay, so Roland, this is it for the papers that I have, the Dispatch, the Daily Guide, BNFT, and of course, the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
Which ones will be your pick? For me, I readily will go for the pardon by the president, but also I wanted to make a bit of commentary and some discussions on the ammonium nitrate deposits, or the audit that was expected to be done by the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, help me, because I was dying to understand exactly what that story was about.
Well, I think it's closely related to the Lebanon incident, in which we have close to 150 people dying, and that blast shook the ground of Beirut, the capital of that country. And ammonium nitrate is known to be used in many other things. What we're popularly very much acquainted with is that it's used in the fertilizer, NPK fertilizer, so to speak, but it's also used in explosives. It's used for many other related activity when it comes to armory and all that.
So exactly what is the EPA going to do, and when does the story say?
Yeah, so mainly because it's sort of being used by licensed agencies of various sectors, and mainly in industry, apart from, let's say, the military or the defense sector. It means that it is possible that we have it in storage for many industries. Now, that will mean that they need to take proper stock of where they are. Are they in good safety conditions? That is not hazardous to either the vicinity or people living in that area. So you find that we've had a number of incidents. And I remember about 2 years ago, there was a fire incident just around this industrial area that we have here at Kokomelmi, around Odona, or the industrial area just close to Kaneshi. And it's where we had one of those polythene manufacturing companies also having one of their inflammable chemicals going off. And so what the Lebanese didn't do is that they didn't take stock or track how these deposits of ammonium nitrate were kept. And even though there are varied information coming out, it just leads to one thing. We had deposits there, they had been stored, but this is the situation. And you know that, well, if we don't do it, we could have some big disasters. We don't know where they are, but I know that industry, apart from maybe the defense sector using it, that would be largely our military. It's the industrial sector that we need to take a look at.
Wow. Well, it's good that the EPA is doing it, I think. But then I would have been wondering, why did they have to take such a deadly explosion in another country for us to now remember? Unless it's something they do and we don't get the updates because, you know, it's not really your news kind of item. So unless there's something that the EPA periodically does and we don't get to hear about it, but we're just hearing about it now because of what has happened in Lebanon. Otherwise, I would have said, and I won't put it past us, we like doing that a lot. When we take an action, you know, it's more of a reaction after something else happens. So I would just be wondering, as a concerned Ghanaian, why would my EPA be doing this because a disaster happened in Lebanon? And I'm not saying it is bad. I'm just saying, I'm just asking questions and just, you know, sharing my thoughts.
Well, if you look at the EPA Act, they tend to do these periodic audits. Whether they do it for the storage for ammonium nitrate, that's another thing. Because just like all things that will tend to influence or affect the environment, you need certain approvals before you undertake those importations. And so the EPA actions and the permission to import ultimately will be given. But, you know, a lot of permits are given and sometimes the central agency itself does not know about it. And you don't have to look far. Look at our land sector and the way we tend to build indiscriminately. And you know that somebody has built indiscriminately somewhere but has the right sort of permits, you know. So it's the same thing that goes for some of the sectors that we have in our country. But we're hoping that this will be a learning period for all of us and we'll take stock. And these institutions will tend to do the work that they have to based on the act or the regulation that establishes them.
And I hope that they find something that actually needs to be worked on and something that will be protective enough. So you mentioned that you would have been interested in the pardoning of the 14 senior high school students. I'm wondering what your thoughts are. But I was just wondering when I saw the story about was it yesterday or so, that why? I mean, what does pardoning of these students mean? And why is it coming from the presidency? Why does it have to come from the presidency? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just asking questions once again. Why should it take the president to pardon students? They did something wrong. Yes, if they have to be punished, they should be punished, but they should still be allowed to write their exams. And I think that's where I think that's where the presidency comes in there, you know, with that pardoning. But I'm asking, what does pardoning mean? And I don't know if it's as clear in the letter you have there scrolling right now. So it says, let me take a quick look. Even though acts of indiscipline undertaken by these students are intolerable, acts which have led to their subsequent dismissal from school, President Akufo-Addo is of the firm view that dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as enough deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. Okay. So the president believes that everyone deserves a second chance in life and is thus hopeful that the students will be allowed by the GES to take their final examination as scheduled. Okay, so the point that the presidency makes is that the fact that you've been dismissed is fine, but you should be allowed to write your exams. And I believe that's also in the right direction. The punitive action should not end up jeopardizing their future. Their future at least should be our ultimate concern. But I'm wondering, did they have to come from the presidency? couldn't the GES manage this, and just decide that for the future of these kids, let them come and write it? Because when you bring the presidency into this, and and I'm coming from a background where we have seen a lot of indiscipline on the part of students, where we have heard people link or call this particular batch of SHS writers the Kufado graduates. I'm coming from a background where there is some sort of political conversation around this particular subject, free SHS, and the need that government sees for it to be successful by all means. And people have read, the meaning into it, that this is an MPP project and it has to come out as successful. So I'm just coming from that angle, where people begin to ask questions and say, why does it have to take the presidency? I think it was really, we didn't need the president to do this. The GES could have easily given this a chance without necessarily bringing in the whole presidency into it. That's my thoughts. And again, what goes into the pardoning? So they'll just be allowed to write their exams and that's it. Nothing. There will be nothing. Yeah, help me out.
What the president did indicate, and if you look at one of the paragraphs, the concluding paragraphs, he did indicate that even just dismissing them in the first place was deterrent enough, was punishable enough. And he said that dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as enough deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. And I know what you think, because you're thinking that the Ghana Education Service as an independent institution should also be independent enough to take a decision to say that, look, this is what we initially said we'll do, but we think that based on calls, we can independently give them this pardon, and it shouldn't be coming from the presidency. But I think until the president's pardon came in, despite all the calls, the GES was going through with the processes, which also is not an affront to the law, its own regulations. So that would mean that they were taking this decision as an independent institution doing their work. Now, the president's intervention, maybe you can look at it from a father figure, chief executive of the land, or you can say that there's some political advantage to be taken from this, but it's also because if you look holistically at what the condemnation and commentary has been, the decision by the Ghana Education Service seems to...
That's what I'm saying. You don't need to...
Seems to have been accepted in total by even the general public. That will mean outright condemnation of these students if they are not able to come back to write their WASI the next year or so. And I think that's why the president...
Well, I'm just saying that we've had enough of the government or presidency or government's involvement in this particular batch of SHS stuff, So this was a problem that could have been easily dealt with at the GES level. I'm saying that if I were the president, need to be involved at a very informal level, maybe place a call somewhere, but to issue a whole statement, I don't know. It's a bit too dramatic for me. And if I were president, I want to stay away from that and allow the system to go through with its own processes, if you get what I mean.
Well, I get what you mean.
That's essentially my thoughts. That's what my thoughts will be.
Okay.
Roland, can you hear me? I hope I'm stable, my internet.
This morning you've been
that's my
you've been well,
thoughts. But I wish these students I don't know if you hear me, but I hope that they can take advantage of this second chance and to do the right thing. When you go to school, when we're going to school, we're told that go and learn, study and pass and come out. If you won't pass at all, don't go and misbehave and get other students to misbehave. So I wish them the best in their exams. And I hope that they really will live up to the expectations that Ghanaians have of them. There's a story you mentioned about police incentives, Roland, and it's a very crucial story. I've done a story where I went across, not across the country, but some parts of the country where the condition of the police stations, Roland, is so unique. You see, I keep asking myself, you keep a lot of us keep putting pressure on the police and saying the police is ineffective, they are not doing this. But the people who have employed them, are they taking care of them enough to be able to do their job?
Well,
are they giving them the things they need to protect us? I think that's a very big conversation we should have as a nation.
I agree.
And we have seen in Kafaba how quickly the police was able to arrest people involved in the killing of the 90-year-old woman. You see, if the police wants to work without, and there are no interferences, the police will do its job. But over the years, we haven't seen really a lot of independence for the police. We haven't seen proper resourcing of the police. And I think it's a story, it's something that I really wanted to comment on.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Gifty, for those conclusive remarks.
Our time where the former IGP announced packages for police.
So that's where we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest in sports, and it's been a good review. Please make sure you catch all the latest on all our relevant social media handles.